الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا وابعث فيهم رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياتك ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة ويزكيهم إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to everyone to our reflection roundup of the Quranic calendar week 2. And Jazakallah khairan to my colleague and friend and Sheikh Fahim, who has opened up with a recitation from one of the ayahs that we will be reflecting on and reading a reflection about in this section from Surah al-Baqarah. As in week 2, we have been reading from ayah 74 through to 157. So passing roughly the halfway mark of the surah, as all of Surah al-Baqarah will be read over the 4 weeks, which make up this month of Shawwal following the month of Ramadan. So this is like a brand new way of looking at the year, the Islamic year. After Ramadan, we have Shawwal. Shawwal is the month of Surah al-Baqarah. And then as we go through the calendar, which I'll share with you here, we will then continue to make this journey through the Quran. After week 2, 3, 4, then we come to the month of Dhul Qa'dah, and we'll be starting Surah Al Imran and also Surah An-Nisa and Dhul Hijjah. Then we're going to get on to Surah Al-Ma'idah, and so on for 46 weeks. 46 weeks, we have 46 readings, and we will have 46 episodes of the Divine Book Club, where myself and the youth here in Glasgow are going to be reading through and sharing some quick comments and reflections to help you with your reading. And then we have this weekly roundup where we go onto QuranReflect.com and we look at some of the things that have been shared there, especially if you remember to put the hashtag Divine Book Club. If you don't, we can still find it, inshallah, but it will make it easier for us if you say hashtag Divine Book Club, and that makes us feel that we're all part of this club in which we are studying the divine book, right? If you didn't know that's why it's called, then I've just done a tafsir for you of the name Divine Book Club. Right, so the first of the reflections that Sheikh Fahim and his team have chosen for us to highlight today comes from Hamza Islam, both very strong names, mashallah. And he is reflecting on ayah 113 of Surah Al-Baqarah. So the translation says, the Jews say the Christians have nothing to stand on, and the Christians say the Jews have nothing to stand on, although both recite the scriptures. So it's this part, isn't it, Sheikh Fahim, that Hamza is taking as the basis for his thoughts?
That's correct, yeah. As you pinpointed, وَهُمْ يَتْلُونَ الْكِتَابِ, whilst they are the ones who recite the book, the scripture.
So I'll read what Hamza said, and then you can share your thoughts about this and why it's important. I feel like this is why this effort is so important. And I think he's talking about our shared project and collective activity here of reading through in the Quranic calendar, right? To be connected to the scripture. It is not empty words, but a message given to us and guidance for how we should live our lives. Although the Jews and Christians read their scriptures, they were not rooted in them and did not follow it accurately. So much so that they were not recognized to be people of God by each other, who did not receive, and by people who did not receive scriptures, right? So even as Ahl al-Kitab, the differences that came between them. You cannot look at them and their way of living and say, these people are on the truth. And the conclusion here is, I must not only read the book, but have a deeper relationship because of it. Hashtag Quranic calendar, hashtag Divine Book Club, hashtag week 2. Perfect hashtagging there, Hamza.
MashaAllah. I thought this was a striking reflection for many reasons. I think it touches upon a concern that as Muslims we should have, and that is generally how we engage with the Book of Allah Azza wa Jal. I think there is an attitude of superficial engagement with the Quran, perhaps a type of learning in the madaris that we've become accustomed to, which is we feel that we've accomplished or we've given the Quran its rights once we complete a reading of the Quran without understanding any of it. And the sort of common phrase is تعلمنا حروفه ولم نتعلم حدوده. We understand its letters, but we don't understand its limits or its implications. And so in this sense, I think the emphasis in this post is on the importance of being connected to the scripture, and not just reciting the words, but allowing for those words to impact the way we live. I think it was Imam Sohaib who mentioned once that one of his teachers...
so not me, right?
I should qualify it. Imam Sohaib Web. Not
Okay.
Imam Sohaib on the web, by the way. Yeah. So that's
web, yeah.
As in,
yeah, I got you now. Yeah. Our Sheikh and colleague and Azhari, fellow Azhari.
Habibuna, Sheikhuna. And he mentioned once that one of his teachers was asked, can you what kind of translation should we give if a non-Muslim comes and asks us? And he says, you be a translation of the Quran. And essentially, it's the idea of the Quran permeating into our lives, uplifting us, allowing the light of the Quran to have an effect in the way we conduct ourselves, our thoughts, our behavior, our general moral behavior in public. So I think there's an important lesson there to have a deeper relationship with the Quran, and not just to read it as the previous Kitab, just read it without really understanding its message or without taking it and acting upon it sincerely.
Right. Very good. I always used to say to Sheikh Sohaib that you were Sheikh before me, but I was Sohaib before you. Before he converted, I was born and I was called Sohaib. So,
do you ever get people calling you Shu'aib?
Only 3 or 4 times a day. Yeah. Okay. So the next reflection we have is from Sayyida Samia Bukhari. And this is a reflection which seems to start from saying, why is this particular story referenced, and how does that connect with, say, broader themes in the surah, broader purposes of the surah? And always this kind of question, we should ponder on it. It's worthwhile, and we should also know that it might be difficult to get to a definite answer about it. But scholars have certainly set an example for how to think about these things. So the Quran gives us glad tidings and warnings both. 2 things happen in this regard. Firstly, the Quran gives us awareness about evil to make us understand how it works and what it leads to. It doesn't teach us how to do evil. So talking about the mistakes of the people of the past isn't to, of course, recommend those mistakes, but specifically the opposite, right? How to keep safe from evil. So Harut and Marut, these angels who were sent to Babylon, they give awareness not with the aim to do it, this kind of sorcery or a similar type of kind of dark arts or power that, kind of a mysterious power that was being, it depends how you interpret what the ayah is referring to. But they warned that this would be, this was a test that they were given, right? So beware of it, stay safe. So that's the kind of point this here. So takeaway point: awareness about evil is not aimed to teach you how to do it, rather to understand its functionality and its effects, so that one can plan the safety net and avoid wishful thinking, avoid being judgmental, interjudgmental, rather become intrajudgmental. I'll let you do a sharh of that for me, because that last part I'm not sure about.
Well, you are tafsir doctor, and as I say, I'm tadabbur nurse, so we have to show that distinction when it comes to interpretation. And so in my understanding, when she talks about interjudgment or intrajudgment being when she says avoid being interjudgmental, rather become intrajudgmental, a basic construction of that is that she's talking about sort of looking into yourself and judging yourself as opposed to others.
So not to think about, okay, those people are so bad because they did that, but rather think, what is the point here for myself, right? To be introspective is another way of putting it. Okay, very good.
But in terms of the actual post, the gist of it, I think she's highlighting that we shouldn't indulge in evil, and the that the angels came down merely to demonstrate this is what evil looks like. So don't indulge in this evil. There's a difference between someone who knows what's wrong in theory versus someone who says, well, I need to experience this wrong in order to avoid it. It's almost like I had this maybe silly analogy in my mind. It's like an officer who needs to know what drug looks like and smells like, but he shouldn't necessarily be an addict himself in order to determine the detriments of it. And so I think that's the main thrust behind the post. And Jazakallah khairan for posting this, and no doubt it's beneficial.
So, also from the sisters, and by the way, I don't know if you've got statistics on how many male users and female users we have in our Quran Reflect community, but certainly we do have a lot of the sisters are very, very active. And so we have another Samia, unless it's Samia, but looks maybe it's Samia. So the same name, but a different person, right? Samia Mubarak. So this is a kind of compilation post because, of course, when you're sharing a reflection on Quran Reflect, you can tag ayahs from different parts of the Quran. And this connects with what we call the lens of connections. So where there's something in common, something related between a particular ayah and other places in the Quran. And of course, even beyond the Quran, connections to hadith and so on. Yeah. But here, of course, we've got a number of supplications, du'as from different parts of the Quran, including these ones that come in this week's reading of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and with his son Ismail alayhi salam. So the kind of relevant part then is if being in a land with no crops or people was a factor that prevented growth, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam would never have made this dua. My Lord, make this city of Mecca secure and provide fruits to its people. So on the face of it, there's an absence here of fertility, and it seems that there's no hope. But Ibrahim alayhi salam is aware that the source of all things and the one who can affect change is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he's not looking at the barren earth itself, but he's looking to the one who chooses and affects in the world. So if being in a place full of idol worship was a factor that prevented a city full of submission to Allah alone, then Ibrahim alayhi salam would not have made this dua for Mecca to become this hub of monotheism as it became. Our Lord raised from among them a messenger who will recite to them your revelations, teach them the book and wisdom, and purify them. Indeed, you alone are the Almighty, All-Wise, which is the ayah that you kindly recited at the beginning of our session. So through this whole reflection, there's a number of things where it points to a common factor, which is these people who had hope because of their trust in Allah, and that trust in Allah comes first of all from a knowledge of Allah and a knowledge of the reality of things, right? A knowledge of how things actually work.
Yeah, I found the selection of du'as that she's put in a post, although they're mentioned in distinct places in the Quran, there's a common thread between these, and that's the hope that these great prophets had in Allah Azza wa Jal. And as you pointed out, the barren land and Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam making dua, where, imagine you had quantity surveyors coming there, where you had, scientists, and, they look at the place and they evaluate, what's our projection in 100 years' time? They'll think there's no way that there's a civilization that's going to boom out of this place. But yet, Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam is looking beyond the material. He's looking at, the power of Allah Azza wa Jal, his trust and his hope in him. Such a powerful post and thought. Jazakallah khair.
Yes, and so the next one that I would like to pull up is from Ustadha Janan Yusuf. So someone who's quite well known for her writings and teaching. So of course on QuranReflect.com we do have some people who are more in the position of teachers and learned people, and then you have also the civilians and lay people and the general community, right? So I think it's a beautiful thing actually that you have this correspondence between all sorts of levels and all sorts of individual experiences and backgrounds as well. So if you're familiar with Janan Yusuf's writings, a lot of them are to do with the names of Allah. And I think that this reflection relates to that as well, where she is looking particularly at Allah saying, Inna Allah ma'as sabirin. Allah is truly with those who are patient. So there is this tendency, as she mentions here, that when we pledge to start something new and beneficial, we might then slip from our plan, and that causes us to become disheartened, and then we might just abandon the good intention altogether. That could be with worldly things, exercise, good habits, right? Everyone has the New Year's resolutions that we've a distant memory now. We are at the end of April. But it can also be in religious things, our relationship with God, promise ourselves to start praying on time. We miss Fajr a few times and we say, that's it, maybe I'm not cut out for being a religious person. I'm just unworthy. Our struggles become a definition of whether or not we are worthy of God. But Allah is as-sabur, the patient, and has named himself that. It's as though God is telling us that while we may have met impatient people in our lives who have made us feel that our efforts are never enough, we have a Lord who loves and appreciates that effort. God knows us better than we know ourselves, including our weaknesses, struggles, and pain. So as long as you're trying, Allah loves it. He's patient. He does not expect you to be the perfect Muslim. Nobody is perfect except the prophets, but simply to strive. And He rewards according to effort. So yeah, what was your thinking when you pulled up this reflection for us?
Yeah, I think as we read on, she wraps it up and perhaps brings the matter home. But as long as you are trying, Allah loves that. He's patient. You mentioned that, but you might say sometimes I put all of my effort in, but sometimes even that is lacking. If that is the case, pick up where you left off. God is patient, and as long as you muster the will to try, even when you struggle, Allah is with you. I think I'm struggling right now, trying to read this fluently. I found this quite uplifting. The post talks about how we should view patience, how we should persevere in attempting to do good. But there are, as human beings, we have limitations. We're fickle. Our emotions are everywhere, and our circumstances change. But I think this post really hits home when it comes to the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal, He's the patient, and He knows that we're trying. And so long as we're trying, then Allah Azza wa Jal will He will love us and He will appreciate that effort. I feel that a lot of people feel disheartened even when it comes to Quran, learning Quran, reading it, contemplating it, even following the Quran calendar, Divine Book Club. You may have missed a week. And I think, as Dr. Sohaib said last week, that it doesn't matter, just pick up from where you left. And I think this post really addresses this point. There will be times when you can't attend or where you can't catch up. It's fine. Just continue the journey. And I like that. It's quite uplifting.
Yeah, that's very important. The idea here isn't to make people have another reason to feel inadequate. It's just to say, let's go together. And it's week 2 just now. Week 2 is just about finished. Let's fit in your week 2 reading if you didn't do it yet. But once we start week 3, just pick up the week 3 reading. If you didn't do week 1, you didn't do week 2, it's fine. Just hop on the caravan and come with us, inshallah. Yeah.
So sorry, I was just going to add on this point when you were talking about New Year's resolution and you were talking about people who may have missed or they may have been lacking in Salah. Perhaps a hadith which comes to mind really hits on this point. The Prophet ﷺ, he says that man nama an salatihi, whoever misses his Fajr prayer and wakes up and realizes that he's missed it, then he says فَلْيُصَلِّهَا إِذَا ذَكَرَهَا فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ وَقْتُهَا. Let him pray in the time he remembers it, for that is the valid time. It's a fiqh, but the point being is, look, it's never too late. Pick up from where you've left and just take the opportunity in the present to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have one more that we'd like to discuss in the time that we have. And this is from our brother Rayan, who we saw last time in the comment section. This time is one of his actual posts, mashallah. So towards the end of our week 2 reading, we have these ayahs about testing and hardship, and we will certainly test you with a touch of fear and famine and loss of property, life, and crops. Give good news to those who patiently endure, who, when faced with a disaster, say, surely to Allah we belong, and to Him we will all return. So this reflection talks about the importance of this trait, which is called sabr, patience, emphasized in various places in the Quran. But what are the connections between patience and faith? Right? Why is it emphasized and put alongside the title of, the believers? And why is it that believers are put through trials and hardships? So here, Rayan's suggestion is a psychological component influenced by how strong our faith is. The believers know that the present life is transient. That's why when things get a little more difficult, they don't stay trapped in the struggles of the present moment. Instead, they return. They understand that they are going to return to their Lord. So when believers are facing a difficulty or a problem and they say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, this is the thing that's mentioned in the ayah, to Allah we belong and to Him we will return. This automatically reminds them that one day they will be eventually leaving all of their problems behind when they are returned back to Allah. And this increases their patience against adversity. So it's a sense of detachment from the worldly situation and the hardships and experiences. It reminds us that whatever we are going through is temporary. It will pass. There's a saying that people consider very important in the Western culture, at least, and sometimes they tattoo it on the side. It says, "This too shall pass. This too shall pass," and that refers to the hardships, but also recognizing that even the good things of this life will pass. Only what is, turned into an investment for the hereafter, that's what will be lasting. But even the enjoyments of this life will pass. So I think this too shall pass is a very, Islamic statement, really. So there's a book which Rayan references here, Performing Under Pressure, The Science of Doing Your Best When It Matters Most, in which he states that we can depressurize the moment by minimizing its significance. So by looking at the immediate problem that you're in and then putting it in the context of your entire life, but most importantly, in the context of your afterlife, you realize that, everything ultimately shrivels in significance, except for the significance of your sabr and your faith attitude, which would then make that something valuable for you and something from which you would earn reward and, lasting reward in the hereafter.
Yeah. First of all, in my reading of this, I found that the sort of psychological analysis was quite interesting. And the term that he uses, depressurizing the moment by minimizing its significance. Of course, we, in some ways, when we do istirja, which is to say, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, that indeed to Allah we belong and to Him we will return. It does have that psychological effect. It reminds us of the ultimate reality that it's all going to be okay. We're going to go back home. We're going back to Allah Azza wa Jal. The pressures that we face are only temporary. I found that quite interesting. And Brother Rayan is someone who, mashallah, he's been an active user. I'd really recommend that the audience do follow his posts, and may Allah bless him. But yeah, on the whole, mashallah, a really pertinent post, especially in light of what's happening in Gaza and the crisis over there, and seeing the sumud and the resilience of our Muslim brothers and sisters there. And there are many people from across the world who really want to know the secret recipe of this amazing resilience that they have, that under this pressure and this enormous pressure, they don't cave in even till their last breath. And no doubt this stems from faith. It's directly from faith. So in light of the circumstances we're witnessing, this ayah is really a good reminder, being able to detach ourselves from worldly situations and experiences and attach ourselves to Allah Azza wa Jal in that bigger reality of returning to Him can ease our pain and suffering. May Allah Azza wa Jal accept.
Ameen, ameen. So just as we close, I'm going to remind everyone, get onto Quran.com/calendar, find the resources there for week 2, if you like. But from Friday, you will start to see the resources for week 3. And let's do that together. If you're inspired by this session, then go ahead and share your reflection. Maybe your first reflection, you just select the ayah that you want to reflect on from our weekly reading. It might be more than one that you want to tag, or it can be a range of ayahs that you want to tag. And you can share your thoughts. And Sheikh Fahim and his team are there to, promote some of the best reflections, but also if they find that anyone is perhaps struggling or might have got something a little bit confused, or that's fine. And you'll get the support and the encouragement to keep reflecting and keep contributing, inshallah.
Perhaps the biggest motivation, Dr. Sohaib, is that your posts quite possibly will be read by Dr. Sohaib in a Scottish accent. And that is
absolutely,
it's not a scene that you want to miss.
Pure dead brilliant. All right, we'll wrap up here. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wassalamu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.